The hive world of Valar never slept. From space, its surface shone with endless green fire, the light of countless chambers where workers, drones, and soldiers moved in tireless rhythm. Deep in the center of the world stood the Hive Palace, a towering structure of black stone and living resin, guarded by thousands of armored warriors. At its heart sat the most feared being in this corner of the galaxy, the alien queen Zarathis. She was enormous, her form stretching across the throne chamber like a living mountain. Her wings folded along her back glimmered faintly with emerald scales. Her many eyes watched every detail of the hive. Each breath she drew sounded like wind across a canyon, deep and commanding. For centuries, her will had been absolute, and her people had followed her without question. But now, her throne chamber shook with her fury. The queen's roar rose like thunder and rolled through the hive palace. Guards, drones, and even the smallest worker insects froze where they stood. Her anger was not only frightening, it was rare. For thousands of years she had been calm, always in control. But that calmness had shattered. Her two sons, the twin heirs of the hive, were missing. They were young, barely 2 cycles old, still in their shell-soft stage where their bodies had not fully hardened. They had been kept in the royal nursery, watched over by the most loyal attendants. No creature dared to enter that sacred place without permission, yet when dawn came, the nursery was silent. The attendants discovered only empty sleeping pods. The queen had rushed there herself, wings tearing at the air, her claws scraping the chamber walls. But the nursery was empty, the scent trails faded. Her sons, her hope for the hive's future, were gone. The attendants bowed before her, trembling. One dared to speak. "My queen, we searched the entire nursery. There is no sign of attack, no walls broken, no scent of enemies." The queen's eyes glowed like molten stone. "Then they were stolen," she hissed, her voice sharp as blades. "No walls broken means a shadow has walked among us. No enemy scent means betrayal comes from within." Her guards looked at one another nervously. The hive was strong, united, bound by loyalty. But if her words were true, then someone inside the hive had dared to betray her. That was unthinkable. Yet the truth could not be denied. Her sons were gone. "Bring me every record of the night," the queen commanded. "Summon every scout, every spy. Search every nest, every corridor, every star above this world. My sons will be found." At her words, the hive came alive with frenzy. Soldiers poured into the tunnels, drones swarmed into the skies, and fleets launched into orbit. The queen's command was law, and the galaxy would feel her wrath until her children were returned. But far from the roaring heart of the hive, a very different scene unfolded. Daniel Hayes was not a soldier, not a spy, and not a hero. He was a simple human engineer, a man who spent most of his life fixing old ships and trading spare parts across border colonies. His vessel, the Wayfarer's Rest, was nothing more than a patched freighter with rusty engines and a stubborn navigation system. He had no crew, only himself, and he liked it that way. Life was quiet, predictable, and safe. At least it had been until today. Daniel sat in the captain's chair of his freighter, staring at his chest in disbelief. 2 small creatures lay curled against him, their tiny armored bodies pressed close, their breathing soft and rhythmic. They were unlike anything he had seen before. Their shells were faintly green, with golden patterns that shimmered when the light touched them. Their small wings twitched slightly as they dreamed. Despite their alien appearance, they looked peaceful, almost like children. Daniel's hands shook as he held them carefully, afraid of waking them. "What in the stars?" "Are you?" he whispered. The twins made no answer, only burrowed closer into his chest, as if they had found warmth and safety there. Daniel's mind raced. He had been alone when he left the last trade station. He had checked every corner of the ship before takeoff. How had these creatures gotten aboard, and why did they cling to him as if they knew him? He looked again at their small forms, and a strange feeling stirred in his heart. He had never been a father. He had no family, no children. Yet holding them now, he felt a protective instinct he didn't understand. Whoever they were helpless, and they had chosen him. But a darker thought followed quickly. He remembered the stories, whispers across the colonies of the Valar hive, of the great Queen Zarathis who ruled with iron wings, of her children, the heirs of the hive, the future of their empire. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "No way," he muttered. "No way this is what I think it is." But deep inside, he knew the truth. These were not just strange alien children. They were the missing princes of the hive. And if the hive discovered he had them, then the queen herself would come for him. Back on Velar, the queen paced her throne chamber, her claws scraping sparks against the stone floor. Reports came in one after another, false leads, empty chambers, trails that vanished into nothing. No one dared bring her failure, yet every messenger trembled before her. One brave commander bowed low and spoke. "My queen, there is a possibility. The children may not be on this world at all." The chamber fell silent. The queen's eyes narrowed. "Explain." The commander swallowed hard. "We searched every chamber and every sky path. If no scent remains, it means they were taken far, perhaps beyond our atmosphere, perhaps into the void." The queen's wings snapped open, the force of them rattling the chamber. "Then find them among the stars," she roared. "Scour every ship, every station, every human colony if you must. Bring me my sons or the galaxy will burn." Her voice rolled like thunder across the hive. Armies prepared for war. Fleets launched into the void. Every star in the nearby sectors would be searched. None would escape her gaze. And yet, while the queen's fury grew, her sons slept peacefully, far from her claws, far from her rage, safe in the arms of a human who had no idea what storm was about to fall upon him. Daniel Hayes leaned back in his chair, the weight of responsibility heavy on his chest. He didn't know why the alien children trusted him. He didn't know how long he could keep them safe. But he knew one thing for certain. His quiet, predictable life was over. The galaxy's most powerful queen was searching for her missing heirs. And sooner or later, she would come for him. Daniel Hayes had faced many problems in his life. Broken engines, delayed payments, hostile traders, and even a pirate ambush once. But nothing had prepared him for the situation now sitting, breathing and snoring gently against his chest. Two alien princes, the sons of the most feared queen in the galaxy. Daniel sat frozen in his pilot's chair, his hands hovering in the air, unsure of what to do. The freighter's cabin was quiet, except for the soft hum of the life support systems and the occasional beep of the navigation console. Outside the window, the endless stars drifted in silence. He looked down again. The small creatures, no, the small heirs, were fast asleep. Their armored shells glowed faintly, as if the energy of their hive still pulsed within them. Their claws were tiny, barely sharp, and their wings folded neatly against their backs. To Daniel, they looked harmless. To the rest of the galaxy, they were priceless. "How in the void did you two end up here?" Daniel whispered, shaking his head. "You don't exactly look like stowaways." Of course, they gave no answer. One shifted in its sleep, letting out a little sound that reminded Daniel of a kitten's purr. He felt his chest tighten in an unexpected way. He sighed. "All right, Danny boy. Time to think. Options. You always make lists when you're in trouble." He raised his finger. "Option 1. Toss them out the airlock." "Not happening." He frowned. "What kind of monster even thinks that?" "Option 2. Call the nearest station, tell them I found some." Alien kids. Let the authorities handle it." He hesitated. "But the nearest station's under hive surveillance. If the hive finds out I'm the one who had them, I'm toast." Option 3. Keep flying, pretend they aren't here. "Yeah, right. Like I can just ignore two glowing bug princes sleeping on me." He leaned back in his chair and let his head hit the cushion. "I'm doomed." Back on Velar, doom was indeed being prepared, but not for Daniel, not yet. Queen Zarathis had gathered her council. The chamber was vast, filled with her strongest generals, her most skilled spies, and her sharpest thinkers. The air buzzed with tension. No one spoke until she did. Her eyes glowed with cold fury. "My sons are beyond this world, stolen from their mother's arms, betrayed within my walls. Tell me who dares to do this." A tall warrior stepped forward, his armor scarred from countless battles. "My queen, we have traced faint energy signals near the outer orbit. A small vessel departed during the night. Human design. Old freighter model. It may have carried your heirs." The queen's claws curled against the stone. "Humans," she hissed. "Always the scavengers crawling through stars they do not own. Always daring to touch what is not theirs. They will pay." Another voice, softer, spoke from the shadows. A spy master cloaked in dark resin. "My queen, we must be cautious. If humans are involved, they may not know what they carry. Perhaps the heirs bonded by instinct. It is rare, but not impossible." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying my children chose a human?" The chamber fell into silence. No one dared confirm it. The spymaster bowed low. I only say that the hive's young sometimes follow instincts beyond reason. If they are with a human, they may not be prisoners, they may feel safe, the queen roared, the sound shaking the chamber walls. Safe? With a human? Impossible. Her generals trembled, but the truth could not be erased. The young princes had vanished without force, without struggle, without a scent of fear. That meant they had left willingly, or had been carried gently. The queen's rage burned hotter. Yet beneath it, hidden deep within her hearts, was a sliver of fear. For if her sons had indeed chosen a human, then the hive's future was no longer fully hers to command. On the Wayfarer's Rest, Daniel finally managed to move. Carefully, he lifted the sleeping heirs from his chest and placed them on the padded bench beside the control panel. They stirred, chirped softly, and curled up again without opening their eyes. Okay, Daniel muttered, rubbing his temples. Step 1, figure out how to keep them alive. Step 2, don't die when their mom finds out. He scanned the ship's supplies. Not much, some ration packs, a few water containers, and half a crate of dried fruit. None of it seemed right for alien kids. He frowned. Do you guys even eat? Or do you, drink sunlight or something? One of the twins let out a squeaky click as if answering him. Daniel blinked. Oh, great. Now I'm talking to bug babies. Losing my mind already. Still, he found himself oddly calm. Normally, he panicked when engines sputtered or when deals went wrong. But now, with 2 alien children under his care, something inside him felt steady, protective, stronger than he'd ever felt before. He reached over, gently touching one of their shells with his finger. It was warm, alive. The little prince shifted closer to his hand, chirping softly. Daniel froze, then laughed quietly. You trust me, huh? Guess that makes one of us. Hours passed. Daniel adjusted his course, taking his freighter away from Valar's patrol routes. He had no plan, but instinct told him to stay far from the hive. If they caught him, he would be crushed before he could even explain. But instincts worked both ways. On Valar, the queen stretched her wings and stared into the void. She could feel it, an ancient bond, the invisible thread that tied her to her children. Faint, distant, but unbroken. Her sons were alive, and she would not stop until they were in her arms again. She turned to her generals. Send the fleets. Spread through the outer colonies. Search every freighter, every station, every asteroid field. No human ship leaves this sector without my eyes upon it. Her voice dropped into a growl. And when you find the one who dares keep my sons, bring him to me. The hive roared in unison, a chorus of wings and claws. The hunt had begun. Daniel didn't know it yet, but every star in the sector was about to turn hostile. The hive was moving and its eyes were sharp, but for now, all he could do was sit in his freighter, watching 2 alien princes breathe peacefully beside him, and wonder how in the world he had become the galaxy's most wanted babysitter. He leaned back, letting out a long sigh. Daniel Hayes, he muttered. You are officially the unluckiest guy alive. But deep down beneath his fear, something else stirred. A strange, stubborn spark. A human spark. The thought that maybe, just maybe, he could keep them safe. And if the galaxy wanted a fight, well, humans had never been known for backing down. The Wayfarer's Rest drifted quietly through the void. Its engines hummed with a steady beat, carrying Daniel Hayes further from Valar and deeper into unclaimed space. For years, Daniel had been a man of routines. Check the engines, make the trade, count the credits, and move on. But now his ship felt alive with tension, and every second carried the weight of something larger than him. The 2 alien princes still slept soundly, their tiny bodies curled up on the padded bench near the control panel. From time to time, one would stir, stretch its small claws, and chirp softly before sinking back into dreams. Daniel couldn't help watching them. For creatures born of a terrifying hive, they looked so innocent, so unthreatening. But Daniel knew the truth. If anyone learned he had them, his life would end in an instant. The hive would come, and the hive never forgave. He adjusted his course again, avoiding the main travel lanes. He had done enough jobs along the borders to know where patrols liked to search. Staying hidden was the only chance he had. Yet as he sat there staring at the star map, doubt gnawed at him. What am I even doing? He muttered. I'm not a soldier, not a hero. I fix broken ships and haggle over prices. That's it. I can't keep 2 alien princes safe from an entire empire. One of the twins let out a faint chirp as if protesting. Daniel glanced over and laughed quietly. All right, all right. I'll try. Back on Valar, the hive was anything but calm. Queen Zarathis stood at the center of the command chamber, surrounded by shimmering holographic maps of the stars. Fleets were moving, vast wings of ships spreading across colonies, outposts, and trade routes. No ship passed without inspection. No station was left unwatched. The hive's shadow stretched wider each hour. Generals reported constantly. No sign in the outer colonies. Freighters, scanned in Sector 7, empty. Station in the Rim reported a human ship docking. But the records were lost. The Queen's patience was thin. Her claws scraped the stone floor with every step. Her eyes glowed brighter each time a report came without good news. Finally, the spymaster approached, cloaked in shadow. My queen, the human ship that departed during the night. Its trail is faint but not erased. It drifts toward the outer fringe beyond regular patrol routes. The Queen's wings snapped open, then follow it. Send hunters into the dark. If a human dares keep my sons, he will learn what it means to steal from the hive. The spymaster bowed. As you command. The hunt grew sharper. Shadows moved through the stars. Silent vessels designed for pursuit. They would find the human. It was only a matter of time. On the Wayfarer's Rest, Daniel finally decided he couldn't stay blind. He needed answers. He tapped the ship's old database, searching through every fragment of information he had stored. Reports about the hive, rumors from traders, whispered stories. Piece by piece, a picture formed. The Valar hive was feared not only for its armies but for its unity. The Queen's will flowed into every soldier, every worker, every drone. Her children, especially her heirs, were more than just family. They were symbols of continuity. If anything happened to them, the hive itself would feel the wound. And here they were, two small heirs curled up beside a human engineer. Daniel leaned back, rubbing his face with both hands. Great. Just great. Out of all the ships in the galaxy, you pick mine. The console beeped suddenly, breaking his thoughts. Daniel stiffened. A sensor alert. Something was out there. He quickly checked the readings. At first it looked like empty space, but then, movement. A faint signal, too quiet for normal patrol ships. Someone was tracking him. His heart raced. Hive scouts, he whispered. They're already here. He shut down his ship's beacon and dimmed the cabin lights. The freighter drifted silently, pretending to be a piece of floating debris. Daniel held his breath, watching the scanners. The signal grew closer, closer. Then, it faded. The ship passed without noticing him. Daniel exhaled slowly, wiping sweat from his forehead. He glanced at the twins. They still slept, unaware of how close danger had come. Yeah, Daniel muttered. This is my life now. Hiding from alien death squads while babysitting royalty. Hours turned into a day. Daniel rationed his food carefully, giving the princes what little he thought might suit them. To his surprise, they nibbled at dried fruit and sipped water, chirping happily after each bite. Watching them eat filled Daniel with an odd pride, as though he had accomplished something important. When one of them climbed awkwardly onto his lap and curled up, Daniel froze. Then slowly he let it rest there. The other soon followed, pressing against his side. He looked down at them, shaking his head. You really have no idea who I am, do you? Just some guy with a rusty ship and bad luck, but you're the future of your whole people. They chirped again, their eyes closing. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Against all reason, he wanted to protect them. Meanwhile, far across the stars, the hive hunters closed in. A small wing of sleek ships glided silently through the void. Their pilots shared a single mind, their thoughts linked by the Queen's command. They spoke no words, needed no signals. They simply hunted. The spymaster's voice echoed in their minds. The trail is faint but real. A human vessel. Old freighter model. Do not destroy it. Capture it. Bring the Queen her sons. The hunters obeyed. Their ships spread into formation, combing the dark like predators. On the Wayfarer's Rest, Daniel didn't sleep much. He sat at the console, eyes fixed on the scanners, hands ready on the controls. Every faint blip made his heart pound. At one point, he whispered to the twins beside him. Listen, I don't know if you can understand me, but here's the deal. If your mom finds us, I'm probably a dead man. But until then, I'll keep you safe. That's a promise. He wasn't sure why he said it. He wasn't sure if it was even possible. But saying it out loud gave him strength. And maybe, just maybe, the princes understood. For one of them reached out, placing a tiny claw against his arm as if accepting his vow. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. "All right then," he whispered. "Guess we're in this together." Far away, the Queen's eyes burned brighter as the hunters closed the distance. The bond between her and her sons pulsed faintly in her mind, closer, stronger. She could almost feel their warmth, their tiny hearts. She spread her wings, her voice carrying through the hive. "My children are near. Soon they will return, and the one who carries them." Her tone sharpened into a blade. "He will kneel before me," the hive roared in response. The chase was nearly at its end. But the galaxy had underestimated humans before, and Daniel Hayes, though only a simple engineer, carried something no hive had faced before: human stubbornness. And he was not ready to surrender. The Wayfarer's Rest was never built for speed or combat. It was an old freighter, patched together from second-hand parts, carrying the scars of years spent on forgotten trade routes. Daniel Hayes knew its limits better than anyone. He had fixed its engines 100 times, coaxed its shields to life after failures, and argued with its stubborn navigation system like an old friend. But as the scanners flickered with faint signals of pursuit, Daniel realized his freighter was no longer just a ship. It was a hiding place, a sanctuary, and perhaps the last fragile barrier between two alien children and an entire empire hunting them. The princes slept again on the padded bench, their small bodies rising and falling in quiet rhythm. Daniel had grown used to their sounds, the soft chirps, the faint hum that seemed to echo inside the cabin. Sometimes he caught himself smiling at them, forgetting for a moment the danger outside. But the blinking light on the scanner brought him back to reality. The hunters were closing in. Daniel zoomed the display. Several faint contacts moved with precision, gliding through space without the chaotic paths of traders or pirates. These ships flew like predators. He knew at once who they belonged to. "The hive found me," Daniel muttered. His stomach tightened. Of course they did. I knew this was too easy. He leaned back in his chair, thinking fast. Fighting was impossible. His freighter had no weapons worth mentioning. Running was possible, but only if he was clever. He checked the map. A nebula stretched nearby, a swirling cloud of dust and charged particles. Dangerous, unpredictable, and the kind of place no pilot entered unless desperate. Daniel grinned nervously. "Well, desperate sounds about right." He adjusted the controls, pushing the engines harder than he usually dared. The freighter groaned as though complaining. The twins stirred at the sudden acceleration, chirping softly. Daniel glanced back and gave them a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, little guys. Uncle Danny's just taking a shortcut." Meanwhile, aboard the hive hunters' ships, the chase grew sharper. Linked minds guided their vessels with perfect unity. They felt no fear, no hesitation, only the Queen's command pulsing in their thoughts. The spymaster's voice whispered through their bond. "The human runs toward the nebula. Do not lose him. His cargo is precious." The hunters shifted formation, gliding silently after the freighter. They were built for this, for stalking prey, for cornering it until escape became impossible. To them, Daniel Hayes was not a man. He was simply the carrier of the hive's lost heirs, and carriers could be broken. The Wayfarer's Rest entered the nebula. Dark clouds swallowed the stars. Lightning flickered across the ship's viewports, silent but fierce, flashes of blue and violet chasing each other through the mist. The ship rattled as charged particles struck its hull. Daniel gripped the controls tightly. "Hold together, old girl," he muttered to the freighter. "You've survived worse, maybe." The scanners went wild, overwhelmed by static. The nebula confused signals, bent light, and hid everything inside its fog. For once that worked in Daniel's favor. The princes pressed against him, chirping uneasily. Daniel touched one of their shells gently. "It's all right. Just thunder. Nothing to be scared of." The truth was, he was scared enough for all three of them. He cut the main engines, letting the freighter drift silently inside the nebula. The hull creaked under the pressure, but the ship held. Daniel dimmed the lights and shut down unnecessary systems. To anyone scanning, the Wayfarer's Rest would look like debris, a dead husk swallowed by the storm. He held his breath, waiting. The hunters entered the nebula soon after. Their linked minds fought against the interference, but unity gave them strength. They spread out carefully, moving like shadows. They could not see the freighter, but they could feel the faint echo of its energy trail. "Closer," the spymaster's voice whispered through their bond. "The prey hides. Do not let it escape." They glided deeper into the fog. Daniel sat in silence, every muscle tense. He watched the scanner, though static blurred most of the screen. His heart pounded at every flicker, every false signal. He knew the hunters were near. He could almost feel their presence pressing against the nebula's walls. One of the princes climbed onto his lap, pressing its small head against his chest. Daniel let out a shaky breath and stroked its shell. "You're not making this easy, you know," he whispered. "I was supposed to fix engines, not play hide-and-seek with alien assassins." The little air chirped softly as if offering comfort. Daniel almost laughed. "Yeah, thanks. Real helpful." Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. Then, movement. A shape flickered on the scanner, faint but real. A hunter ship glided dangerously close, its sleek frame cutting through the mist. Daniel's breath froze. If they looked his way, if they scanned too hard, his disguise would fail. The ship slowed. Its lights glowed faintly in the fog. For a moment, Daniel was certain they were caught. He closed his eyes, whispering silently, "Please." Just pass by, the ship drifted. Its shadow lingered, scanning. Then slowly, it moved on. Swallowed by the nebula. Daniel let out a long, trembling breath. That was too close. But the danger wasn't over. Further out, the hunters were tightening their net. Though the nebula hid much, their unity gave them patience. They would not leave until every shadow was searched. The human could not hide forever. Back on Valar, the queen herself felt the faint pull of her bond. Her sons were near. So near she could almost hear their tiny hearts. She closed her eyes, focusing on the thread of instinct. "My children," she whispered. "I am coming." Her wings spread wide. The hive roared in answer. On the freighter, Daniel finally allowed himself a sip of water. His throat was dry, his hands still shaking. The twins had returned to sleep, seemingly unbothered by the danger. He envied them. He leaned back in the chair, staring at the swirling lights of the nebula outside. He knew this couldn't last. The hunters would keep searching. Eventually they would find him, unless he found a way to outsmart them. Daniel Hayes was no warrior. But he had one advantage: he was human. Humans had a reputation out here in the galaxy. Fragile, yes. Short-lived, yes. But clever. Stubborn. Unpredictable. He rubbed his temples, forcing his tired mind to think. "All right, Danny. If the hive thinks you're just cargo, prove them wrong. You're not just running anymore. You're fighting back." His gaze shifted to the nebula. To its storms, its chaos, its unpredictable bursts of energy. Most pilots avoided it. But maybe it could be a weapon. Slowly, a plan began to form. Risky. Dangerous. But then again, everything about his life lately was risky and dangerous. He looked down at the twins, sleeping peacefully against him. He felt a strange warmth in his chest. A reason to try. Daniel Hayes smiled grimly. "All right, Hive, you want your princes? You'll have to earn them." Far away, the hunters adjusted their paths, preparing to close their net. The spymaster whispered in their minds, certain of victory. But deep inside the nebula, a lone human engineer was preparing a surprise, and for the first time, the hunters of the hive were about to learn what made humans feared in their own way. The hive ships filled the skies like a swarm of endless stars. From orbit down to the broken plains of the world below, the Valar forces stood ready. Countless wings beat in unison, and their shadows fell across the ground like the night itself had come alive. At the center of it all, inside her great command ship, the alien queen waited. Her fury had not faded, but there was something deeper in her voice now, an edge of fear hidden under the fire. Her sons were alive. She had seen them herself, through the feeds that her soldiers brought back, but she could not ignore the strange detail that burned in her mind. They had been found not afraid, not screaming, but asleep in the arms of a human. They had clung to his chest as though he were a protector. That truth gnawed at her. On the ground, Daniel Hayes stood at the foot of his ship, watching the sky darken under the swarm. His heart pounded hard, but he did not run. He could feel the princes pressed against his side, holding his arms as though they trusted him more than anything else in the galaxy. Their small claws hooked gently into his clothes. Daniel knew the hive would never forgive him if he tried to keep them. He was just an engineer, an ordinary man caught in something that was never meant for him. Yet at the same time, he could not forget the way the princes had curled up to him in peace, as though humans were not enemies but family. A bright spear of light split the sky. A massive ship descended and the ground trembled as it landed before Daniel. The hatch opened with a hiss and the alien queen herself emerged. Her towering form glowed in the fading light, her wings stretching wide, her eyes burning like emerald fire. Every instinct in Daniel told him to fall back, to hide, to escape. Yet he held his ground. The queen's voice shook the air. "Human," she said, her tone sharp as steel. "You carry what is mine. You have taken my heirs. Return them now, and I may let you leave this world alive." Daniel swallowed. His hands trembled slightly as the two princes clung tighter to him. Their small voices chirped softly, almost like comfort, as though they were telling him not to be afraid. "I didn't take them," Daniel said, his voice steady though his chest felt heavy. "They came to me. I don't know why, but they chose me." The queen's many eyes narrowed. Her soldiers shifted, their weapons raised, ready to strike. But the queen lifted one hand, stopping them. She studied Daniel, her gaze deep and unreadable. "You expect me to believe they would choose a human?" she hissed. Daniel looked down at the princes, then back at the queen. "You don't have to believe me. Just look at them." The queen's eyes flicked to her sons. The two small princes looked back at her, but neither moved from Daniel's chest. Instead, one gave a soft sound and the other curled even closer to the human's arms. The sight made even the queen pause. Her breath shuddered once, and for the first time in centuries her voice wavered. "They cling to you," she whispered. A silence spread across the battlefield. Thousands of insect-like soldiers waited, frozen. The swarm held its breath, waiting for the queen's command. Daniel felt the weight of that silence. He knew one wrong word could end him. Yet he also felt something stir inside, a realization that this was not just about survival. It was about trust. It was about showing something the hive had never seen before. "I don't want to take them from you," Daniel said quietly. "I only want them safe. If that means giving them back to you, then I will. But if they found comfort in me, maybe there's a reason. Maybe. Humans and your kind don't have to be enemies forever." The queen's wings twitched. The hive soldiers shifted uneasily. To them, the idea was unthinkable. Humans were weak, soft, and small. They were nothing compared to the endless strength of the hive. And yet here stood one human, unarmed, unarmored, holding the future of the hive in his arms, and the princes themselves had chosen him. The queen stepped closer. Her massive shadow fell over Daniel. She extended one clawed hand, and for a moment, Daniel thought she would strike him down. Instead, she reached slowly toward her sons. The princes looked up at her, their eyes glowing softly, then back at Daniel. It was clear. They did not want to leave him. Something inside the queen cracked. For the first time in her reign, her sons resisted her command. She pulled her hand back, her chest trembling with emotions she had not felt in centuries. "You care for them?" she said to Daniel, her voice softer now. Daniel nodded. "With all I have?" The queen's gaze lingered on him. In that moment, the swarm of the hive, the future of her empire, all balanced on a single choice. She could kill the human and rip her sons away, but what would that teach them? Fear? Hatred? Or she could do something far harder, accept what had happened and let this strange bond live. The queen raised her wings high. Her soldiers tensed, waiting for the order. Then, slowly, she lowered them. Her voice rang out across the plain. "The human lives," she declared, "and none shall harm him." The soldiers froze in disbelief, then obeyed, lowering their weapons. Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked down at the princes, then back at the queen. She had not ordered them to leave him. Instead, she turned, her wings folding as she walked back to her ship. Her last words echoed as the hatch closed behind her. "Perhaps. There is more to humans than I believed." The swarm rose into the skies, leaving Daniel standing alone on the ground. The princes stayed with him, their trust unbroken. He knew the hive would watch him now, perhaps even test him. But he also knew something new had begun. A bridge had been built between species, one not of power or war, but of trust. And it had started with two small princes asleep on a human's chest.